All right, so 3-2. Some mana issues, some mulligans against Band Company, and just kind of got beat up by green-black stuff. Bushwhacker sideboard plan did not seem super effective against them, considering they had a bunch of blockers in addition to languishes and whatnot. So it seems tough because they're actually, trying to stabilize against you in a bunch of different angles. And normally it's pretty easy to just have like 8 cards that are good against control or like 8 cards that are good against big creatures. But in this case, it was a little tough because we need to spread our deck pretty thin, and they had ways to attack Gideon and stuff. So yeah, it was really, really difficult. But deck is good. Obviously kind of tough to play. It is very easy to just like throw your stuff on the table, and sometimes you just outclass them like the last game there. But there are a lot of super small decisions, and sequencing is really important, and finding out ways where you can like sneak through damage and stuff are all really important skills to have when playing this deck, because you don't just outmuscle people all the time. You can have a bunch of lieutenants and always watchings and they just die, but most of the time you're facing resistance and you kind of have to get a little bit scrappy, and I think that is what Tom does, like first and foremost, like the best with this deck, especially compared to other people. So yeah, I mean, you want to learn more about this deck, definitely read his articles, watch some of his matches on Twitch archives on SCG Live. This deck is very good. I would note that we did not utilize the sideboard very much, but that was both a factor because of like what matchups we played against, and the fact that like these control decks are not very big right now, which might mean that you could potentially just like remove some of the stuff from your sideboard completely. So control is not big because green-white beats up on it, so control doesn't really show up. So there's not a lot of Radiant Flames, not a ton of languishes, and that means that this deck is just pretty well positioned, and despite winning like the last 2 tournaments, it might still stay that way. So leading into this weekend, I do think this deck is still a rock-solid choice. I don't think you can really go wrong with it. I don't think there's going to be too big of a backlash of people trying to beat you. Like Tom winning twice, it's just like, you get the ham sandwich argument a lot, right? Where they're just like, Tom could win with whatever. It just so happens that like he likes his little white creature deck and that's what he plays. But at the same time, there were 3 total human decks in top 8 of SCG Orlando, and that was not a fluke. The deck is for real. The plan is good. Maybe there needs to be some more fine tuning, but overall, I think people are not going to react super strongly to this at all. Especially since I think green-white tokens is still the best deck, and that is the deck that people need the most help trying to beat, because I don't think this deck is going to show up in huge numbers. But it is real. If this is your wheelhouse, by all means, get to it. I do feel like maybe a 1-drop could come out for something, but I don't know what I want. Militia Captain did transform. It did look pretty good there. But I don't know. It's not like I'm just like, oh man, I wish I had another 2-drop or whatever. Like that just never really comes up. So I don't know. I do feel like there are some games where you just draw a bunch of 2-1s and nothing to do with them, and those games kind of stink because you're not really doing anything. But that's what sideboarding is supposed to fix, sort of. I think game 1 you just want to play triple 1-drop as often as possible, and that's what this deck is built to do, basically. So yeah, do your homework. Test some of this deck. Get some reps. Get used to the creature combat. Figure out like the tiny small ways to get an edge. Think pretty hard about sequencing, like specifically just like which 1-drop you play first. What are you going to do on turn 2? Like, are these hands keepable? Like when to sack your clues, stuff like that. Like those are things that you'll pick up by getting in the reps. But if you just pick up the deck cold, you might mess it up a little bit, and the deck is not very forgiving because it typically wins by inches. So be careful out there. Play tight. Deck should reward you. I'm looking forward to see what Tom can do this week, because obviously winning 2 tournaments back-to-back is just an insane accomplishment, and we'll see if he can make it 3 for 3, I guess. But as always, thanks for watching, everyone. I'll see you next week. Maybe delve into like some Modern. We'll see. Standard's getting kind of old at this point. Spoiler season is starting, and that stuff's always a little bit more exciting than lame duck Standard. So maybe I'll start playing some Modern. But yeah, thanks a lot.